Good idea to share my screen. Okay. Here we go. I'm sure you can see my screen now. Can I get a thumbs up? Great. Thank you, George. Okay, so let's begin. TLHE8412 part 1 of the POE. I'm hoping those are all thumbs ups, but let me check. Otherwise, the whole time I'll be thinking someone tried to say something. Great. Thank you, everybody. So basically, part 1 is based on preparation and feedback. Now, a crucial component in assessment, in the assessment process, is preparation and feedback. So as you are working through Learning Unit 2, you will start unpacking in greater detail the importance of preparation and feedback, how to prepare students, how to provide feedback, and so on. And then, of course, you need to make those connections to your specific discipline. So part 1 is out of 25 marks, and it will be completed in your groups. So please type using Arial font size 12, 1.5 line spacing, justify your text, not the bibliography. Now, in this part, they should have actually changed that instruction. I just generally copy and paste it across. But in this case, you wouldn't be using 1.5 line spacing and so on, because you'll be completing a table. So if you are going to do 1.5 line spacing, font size 12 and all of that, you're going to find that in no time your table is going to be, it's going to look very clumsy. So you could use maybe, I think a font size 11 in a table looks presentable, single line spacing, and of course just normal text. You can also landscape your page, which is what I would recommend when working with the table. It just also, makes it more readable. Please number your responses accurately. Use the mark allocation to determine length and depth of your responses. Now, that's very important, especially because you're putting information in a table. Now you're going to be like, how much must I write about this? So the mark allocation will help you. And you'll find that when we're going through the rubric, it doesn't require you to put huge amounts of information into that table. Like I noticed, was it in your group? Sometimes, and I think I picked this up last semester as well, it's almost like you're cutting and pasting sections of an essay into the table. I know that you're not necessarily doing that, but that's what it seems like, because that's how you are typing. You're typing in a table like you will type an essay. And that's not what the table is meant to do. A table is meant to be a very summarized version of what you want to say. Okay, please make sure you submit everything, including a bibliography. One group member must submit. You are familiar with that now. And make sure you submit on the date and time. It's not as per the PAS, it's as per the schedule that I gave to you. I've uploaded on Learn. Did somebody raise a hand? Sounded like a hand went up.
Yes, hi, it's Karen. Hi, can I just ask a question about, you want the summarized content in the table. Do you mind if it's in point form?
Like I don't mind at all. Bullet points are absolutely fine, but just make sure, Karen, when you're working in a table and those bullets automatically shift to the center, then make sure you align them back against the margin, because then you're going to be losing space. Bullet points, absolutely perfect. The one thing I do want to caution about bullet points is, like, sometimes you use bullet points and you use them properly, but sometimes people use what should be bullet points in a paragraph. I don't know if that makes sense. I must actually find an example and show it to you in from one of the submissions. So for example, like, it will be like, I'm trying to think of 5, okay, let's say 5 properties of water. I can't even remember 5 properties of water right now. What is it? Transparent, tasteless, colorless, whatever the case may be. So instead of putting that in bullet points, it's almost like written in a paragraph, but it is bullet points. So oh, here's what I'm trying to say. It is not full sentences to make a paragraph. It's the structure of bullet points, listing in point form structure, but formatting it in a paragraph. Now that's a problem. If it's going to be bullet points, it must be bullet points. If it's going to be in a paragraph, it has to be full sentences using capital letters and full stops. And of course, everything must be referenced. Karen, was that all, or did you want to ask something else? Okay, let's move on. Thank you for that. That was a very good question. Okay, so for part 1 and part 2, it's not on the pass. You're going to go as per the schedule, and it is the 23rd of August. I'm almost 100% certain that that is the date. Can someone give a thumbs up that it is indeed the 23rd of August, if anyone has that schedule in front of them, just to confirm what I'm saying is indeed correct. 23rd of August. Yes, okay. Right. So you must complete part 1 with your group, and I will give you some context here. Bloxham and Boyd, 2007, this is your prescribed reading. There was something else that I noticed in the ICE task submissions. I'm so sure, yes. There were some very outdated sources that were being used, like really, really early as 1995. And I'm not sure why this is the case. I've had students ask the question, can we use sources that are old? And I said, yes, but only in a certain context. So if, for example, you are trying to show the progression of like how something happened, so, you know, from behaviorism to constructivism, then of course you're going to be referring to the founders like Skinner and Vygotsky, and those are old sources. However, even constructivism, from when Vygotsky came up with the ideas to how we are applying it now, there have been significant changes. So in as much as you're going to say, this is what this guy said, you have to find more current information about constructivism in the modern classroom. Now, it's the same with assessment. Assessment is not how it was in 1995. So I cannot understand why there were all these old sources. Now, I know AI and ChatGPT are very fond of using old sources. I've been playing around a lot with it myself to try and understand better, like, you know, and it actually has a very specific way of writing, which is once you use it enough, it's quite easy to pick up. It has a style. And it tends to use old sources. So I'm not sure if that's where the old sources are coming from, but that should not be the case. You need to use AI ethically. So please make sure that you are not putting assignment questions into AI and then copying and pasting from there into your assignment, because in some of the other qualifications, it was a huge problem, and large amounts of students tried and ended up getting no marks. So please avoid doing that. This is your own work. It's for your own learning, and keep up to date with the readings. So assessment, as we view it now, is so interesting, because now we're even using technology for assessment. You know, online platforms for invigilation, we're using gamification, we're using online quizzes. Now, all of that you're not going to get in 1995 if you're looking at definitions of assessment then. So even though Bloxham and Boyd, and this is 2007, is an old source and it's your prescribed material, you now need to read on top of that, further beyond that, okay? And you're only going to use old sources if you are trying to show progression of something, like, you know, this is what happened in 1995, but since then, look at what's happening now. This was the definition back in 1995, but due to the changing landscape of education, the classroom, and the nature of the students, definitions of assessment also have changed, okay? So that type of thing. Okay, so back to this, Bloxham and Boyd 2007, that's your prescribed material, and there's the full reference at the bottom. emphasize the need to prepare students for assessment in pursuit of student achievement. During your research on an inclusive approach to assessment that acknowledges the needs of all students, one of your conclusions is students lack understanding of assessment requirements. And that is why we have these sessions. Because very often, even like the first time I read an assessment, I'll be like, what's going on here now? And then you have to read it again and you have to unpack it in a little more detail. And that's a skill. And often students don't have that skill. I mean, I don't know if anybody here teaches first years or higher certificate students, students straight out of high school who are coming to tertiary, they struggle. They don't understand the genre of an assignment as yet. So they don't understand the requirements. They don't know how to read an assignment. They don't know how to format an assignment. They don't fully understand the expectations of an assignment at tertiary level. It is a skill, and it takes time for them to develop that skill. And through assessment preparation, we can help them develop that skill. A simple thing, for example, like instruction words, like you'll notice this, okay, as students start progressing, I'm sure to second and third year, then there's an improvement. But you'll notice in first year, if you ask them to explain something, they'll give you a list. Or if you ask them to describe something, they will give you a definition because they don't understand instruction words. Essay writing, they don't understand how to set parameters in an essay. So that is why it is very important to prepare students to understand assessment requirements. What specifically do they need to do in the assessment? Now, to address this challenge, you need to consider ways of assisting students to optimize assessment opportunities. And this is very specific to your discipline. So not just in general, like, you can have a booster session or you can do this. It has to be very specific for your discipline. To this end, you must investigate, evaluate, and expound guidance and feedback as a possible approach to preparing students for assessment. You need to also look at the role of academic literacy in assessment preparation for your discipline. Now, the people who do numeracy modules like accounting and so on, who'll be like, now why academic literacy? Academic literacy applies to all modules. Students need to be able to read critically and understand the expectations and requirements of the assessment. They also need to be able to reference, paraphrase, compile bibliographies, all those things that are associated with academic literacy, including searching for credible online sources and then being able to evaluate the usefulness of those sources and credibility of those sources. So all of that is linked to academic literacy. So academic literacy plays a huge role in preparing students for assessments in your discipline. So referencing your own discipline for examples, you're going to complete the table below. The table may contain any relevant aspects, but must share best practices related to preparing students for assessment and must include at least the following. So the table gives you the headings, and if you want to add any, you most certainly can. You are welcome to, but your response should not exceed 2 pages. And the 2 pages, of course, excludes the references. So the first one, of course, is the discipline. So what is your discipline? Put it in there. If you have more than one discipline, then of course, please put, depending on your group. We tried as much as possible, I know, for one discipline per group, but it didn't always work out. And eventually, I think students started enjoying the mixed discipline groups because then they were learning different, things from each other. So you can put both disciplines or more there. Then the first thing that you need to do, a clear overview of the importance of preparing students for assessment. So it's an overview. It's not a detailed description. It is a clear overview. So please, I know in the past, students start off with, assessment can be defined as, in higher education, assessment is important because, now that is not what the question is asking you for. You've already done all of that in ICE Task 1 and you did it really well. So you do not have to start by explaining what assessment is, the importance of assessment in higher education, none of that. Go straight for the jugular and speak about the importance of preparing students for assessment, okay? So make sure you are on point. The need to integrate academic literacy in assessment preparation in X discipline. So where that red X is, you take the X out and you put your discipline. If you have more than one discipline in your group, then you'll need 2 blocks for that answer, of course. And I do understand that it will then go over the page limit, which is understandable. Okay, so why do you need to integrate academic literacy when you are preparing your students for assessments, particularly in your discipline? Why is that going to be important? The role of guidance and feedback in preparing students for assessment, the process involved in preparing students for assessment. And here Karen's question comes in so well because this should be in bullet points. Practical methods to support students' understanding of assessment requirements and criteria in X discipline. So in your discipline, what practical methods or techniques can you implement to support your students to understand what is required in that particular or in assessments in particular? Okay, and then the last one is a justification of how the methods to support students to optimize assessment opportunities. So how is what you suggested going to optimize assessment opportunities to support students? And then finally, list of references, you can put in that block. Please use the IIE Harvard referencing format. And you have the guide. So just please don't put brackets around the dates in the bibliography. I still see 1 or 2 of those coming in. And make sure the journal is italicized, you know, all those little things. Okay. So the table must be evidence-based, which means you must consult and incorporate academically sound sources, no blogs and so on, just a reminder. You must reference your prescribed material, so we need to see Bloxham and Boyd in here, and at least 4 additional academic sources. You must have in-text references in the different sections in your table and a list of references at the end of the table. Now, a common error that happens in tables is there'll be a large section of text, and then just at the end of it, the student will put an in-text reference or 2 in-text references. That's not how it works. The in-text reference must still go by the idea. So even if it is in bullet points, and you have taken each point from a different source, then you must put the different source by each point. If it is a bullet list and you have taken all the points from one source, please do not put an in-text reference at the end of each one, the same in-text reference, Bloxham and Boyd 2007, Bloxham and Boyd 2007. You can just say the following process is adapted from Bloxham and Boyd 2007, and then put your process list, if that makes sense, okay? Normal academic writing conventions apply, so please make sure you maintain an academic tone all the time. No contractions, no slang or jargon, things like that. And I told you your answer should not exceed 2 pages, excluding the references. Okay, so I heard a question before we go through the rubrics. Let me come to that question. Well, our page limit, Noel, I explained that if you have more than one discipline, you will probably exceed the 2 pages, which then will be fine. Okay, are there any other questions before we move on? Okay, I'm going to go through the rubrics, but if you do think of anything, then just as Nawal has done, pop it in the chat box. Okay. So first one, preparation and feedback. overview of the importance of preparing students for assessments. And you can see this is for 3 marks. So you're not meant to write 2 paragraphs try and fit 2 paragraphs into that block in the table. I mean, it's for 3 marks. You are just required to demonstrate an understanding, a comprehensive understanding. I'm seeing that word there, so let me say a comprehensive understanding of the importance of preparing student assessment. And I think, like previously, somebody asked, like, oh, is 3 points sufficient? If your 3 points demonstrates a comprehensive and insightful overview, then your 3 points are enough, okay? Provides a comprehensive and insightful overview of the importance of preparing students for assessment. So just make sure that you are not going into too much here. So just provide the importance, okay? Integrate, excuse me, integration of academic literacy in assessment preparation, again for 3 marks. Here you need to demonstrate a thorough understanding of how academic literacy can be effectively integrated into assessment preparation in the discipline with clear, well-supported examples. So explain how you can integrate academic literacy in your discipline, why there's a need for it, and then provide some examples. I would structure that as you do a paragraph, define, explain, apply. So maybe try and, follow that structure where you first say, why it's important in your discipline, and then give an example of how it can be done in your discipline. The process involved in preparing students for assessment, and that is for 4 marks, clearly outlines and describes the process of preparing students for assessment in the discipline, demonstrating a deep understanding. Now, here you need to make sure, and the reason why the rubric requires that describe and demonstrate deep understanding is sometimes what happens is it's just a very vague bullet list. So there needs to be some sort of something more in that bullet list, not just, for example, step 1, put the students in 1 lecture venue. There's got to be like, why are you doing that? How are you going to do it? Just a little bit of an elaboration. So you can state your points and then maybe give a brief description of what that stage will entail or involve or why it's important, but just to provide some sort of context. I think that's what's needed to make your answer then more meaningful. Otherwise, it's just going to be a list that you're copying and pasting from somewhere, okay? Practical methods to support student understanding of assessment requirements, and that's for 4 marks, presents a variety of practical and effective methods to support student understanding of assessment requirements and criteria in the discipline with strong justification. So those methods must be justified in terms of why they are suitable for your discipline. So you cannot just for example, provide a method and then it's something so generic that it can apply to just about any discipline. And I suppose even in that instance, it's fine. But what you need to do is say why in particular is it applicable to your discipline and the best method for your discipline. And then lastly, the justification of how the methods may support students to optimize assessment opportunities, that is also for 4 marks, offers a comprehensive and compelling justification of how the suggested methods support students in optimizing assessment opportunities with strong evidence and reasoning. Now, this could be a short paragraph, and what's important here is the analytical and critical thinking that's needed. So you have to actually really drill down and say, show that you have thought about this, you've evaluated the methods that you have suggested, and that's how you came to the response that you did for your discipline, okay? And then the list of references, that is for 3 marks, accurately follows the IIE Harvard referencing guide format and includes references from prescribed material and at least 4 additional academic sources. So just for doing what you do, I know in semester 1, we really went through it in a lot of detail and so on. So by now, most of you have quite a bit mastered that skill of referencing. And for doing that, according to the IIE Harvard Referencing Guide, and for using your prescribed material and 4 extra sources, then you're going to get that 3 marks. Okay, so I heard another question. Is question 3 out of 3? Karen, let me go back. I'm not sure which one is question 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. What happened to 3? 1, 2. 3 got cut off. How did that happen? Oh. Hold on. Let me just go and find the actual paper. It seems I cut off 1. Thank you for noticing that, Karen. When I was moving it into PowerPoints, I probably cut off 3. Let's see. What is 3? No, that's part 3. That's part 2. 3 is the role of feedback and guidance. Goodness me, that is so important. Is 4 there? Did 3 and 4 get cut off? That is very annoying. No, 4 is there, so it's just 3. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen again. And I'm going to... Oh, it looks like 4 to make up 25. No, you're quite right, Karen. In my PowerPoint presentation, the guidance and feedback one was cut out. So that's where you were missing the marks. But if you look here in the POE, it is definitely there. I really apologize for that. But you would have seen it there. Here it is, the role of guidance and feedback. Number 3, it is for 4 marks. Provides a detailed and comprehensive exploration of the role of guidance and feedback in preparing students for assessment in the discipline, supported by robust examples. So here, you must just provide an explanation of guidance and feedback and the role that it plays in preparing students for assessment, specifically in your discipline, and then you can provide a few examples to motivate what you are saying. So that was guidance and feedback, which is also for 4 marks. I must remember to sort that out. Thank you very much for that. Okay, are there any other questions? Awesome. Okay, was everything else clear? I think it is not too complex. Once you've done the readings and once you've done the research, then everything will fall into place, and you really don't need ChatGPT to help you with this one. Because yeah, those discipline specific, your own critical analytical thinking is so important here. So that's what I'm hoping to see. Okay, so this actually went a lot quicker than I expected. Before I do the referencing refresher again, which is very important just to make sure that there are no referencing errors, from Kurs, were there any questions while you were working through the content? If you recall, last week, I don't know what happened to my internet. It just blinked off and then came back on at 2 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. obviously in the morning. Yeah, so I couldn't have that session, and I'm so sorry about that, but there is a recording uploaded, and then I just said that I'll answer any questions or anything that's not clear. But if you're still working through that, then that's okay. Next week when we meet for Kurs, we can speak more about Learning Unit 2. So there's nothing to stress about. I will definitely make up the content. You won't fall behind or anything like that. So was there anything that you needed to ask about CARS or even about POE Part 1 here? If you want to ask something, you can go ahead. If everything is clear, you can give a thumbs up so that I know I can move on. Thank you, Roxanne. Okay, great, that's wonderful. If people are typing questions, please don't stop or feel that everybody else has thumbs up so they know what's going on. Surely I should also know what's going on. It's absolutely fine. If you're typing a question, please go ahead and carry on typing. It's the only way that you're going to see and understand is if you ask. So yeah, don't feel any way. You can just keep typing and I will still answer. So if you are fine and if you are comfortable with referencing and with everything that I've covered in part 1, for part 1, then you're welcome to leave the session and use the remainder of the time to continue working on your ICE task. I think you have one due this Sunday. Or you can start working on part 1, start putting some ideas together. Please use the remainder of the session profitably if you want to leave. If you want to stay on, you can stay on. And I will go over the and I will go over the referencing now. Does the recording cover CARS National Support Assignment 1? We haven't gotten to the CARS National Support Assignment 1 as yet. That's still coming. If you have a look on your schedule, I think the date is on there, but it definitely wasn't last week. It's still coming, maybe next week or the following week, but the date is on the schedule, so you can just get it from there. Okay, great. Any other questions, you can just keep typing and I will, in the meantime, carry on with the referencing. And those who want to leave, you are most welcome to do so. Thank you so much for joining if you are leaving, and have a lovely evening. And I'll see you for CARS next week. Okay.
Sorry, Dr. Naz.
And those who are staying, sorry, did somebody have their hand up? I didn't see it.
It's me. I'm just being rude and just talking. I should have put my hand up.
That's okay. Go ahead. I don't mind.
I know we have our VC online calendar, but I know usually for each module the lecturer does a specific schedule. Where will I find that?
It's uploaded in an announcement.
Is it uploaded for both modules? Because then I know it has
Yes, for both modules.
Part 1, part 2 dates in there. Although it does fit into our Blackboard calendar. I just
hold on, just give me 1 second. I'm going to show you where to find it.
Okay.
Give me just a second. Here, can you see my screen? I'm sure you can. And if you come here to announcements,
you can see it.
It's taking long to load. Okay. And here's your schedule. I posted it on the 23rd of July.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Let's just open it because I see there are 1 or 2 other questions about CARS and so on and so forth. So this is what it looks like. CARS assignment 1 is due on the 14th of August. So we'll probably have the national support session for that one next week. And then part 1 for TLHE is indeed due on the 23rd of August. Yes, that's right. I am doing the national support session on the 7th of August. It's there. And today being the 31st of July, we did the national support session for part 1. Yeah. Okay, so this is what the schedule looks like. All the links are included and your parts and so on. And I put a disclaimer here. Please double check your pairs because, you know, sometimes pairs dates change. Yeah, so please make sure you double check your pairs. Okay, I see I heard another question. Let me come back here. Here. Oh, okay. It's got both modules on one sheet. Yes, that's correct. I generally do it side by side because then it makes it easier for your planning also. You can see exactly what is where. And I've kept this week of the 8th September free because I know you've got your task 3 for HETP due there. So other than working on learning unit 4 in that week, like you don't have any tasks due for me. I think on the 6th of September, if I'm not mistaken, is that HETP task 3. So yeah, you can have that week for that. Okay. You're most welcome, Karin. And what I tried to do was also populate everything on the calendar. I'm going to show you the calendar also, but don't get a huge fright because it's my calendar and it's a little bit of a mess because of all the teachings that I do. But if you look here, so I have put in your sessions and your ICE task due dates on the calendar. So it's all there for you. Okay, yeah. Okay, are there any other questions before I go into the referencing stuff? Okay, perfect. If you have questions, like I said, just keep them coming. And yeah, I'll answer them once we're done with that. So let me do this. Sorry, good night, Roxanne, and anyone else who's leaving. How should I reference? The Harvard system, known as the author and date system, is the prescribed referencing system used by the IIE. Now, other institutions use other referencing systems, such as APA, or whatever the case might be. But here at the IIE, we use the Harvard referencing system. Paraphrase and include correctly formatted in-text references. Now, this is how you do in-text referencing. I have a quotation here from a prescribed text by Fielding and Deploy Cilliers. It is the year of publication is 2014. The page number is 10. When we say communication is dynamic, it means that communication is in a state of flux or change. Now, that is what Fielding and Deploy Cilliers have included in their textbook about explaining what communication is. Now, I want to use that idea in, let's say, my assignment. So here's what I will need to do. Fielding and Deploy Cilliers 2014 highlight the dynamic nature of communication as it is always changing. Or I could say, communication is dynamic as it is always in a state of change. And then in brackets, I put Fielding and Deploy Cilliers 2014. So what have I done here? In both examples, I paraphrased, meaning I took Fielding and Deploy sentence. But in both examples, my in-text reference only has the author's surnames and the year of publication. So when you are doing in-text referencing, you will use the author's surname and the year of publication. And you paraphrase the idea, meaning you put it into your own words. You do not include initials, you do not include hyperlinks, titles of books, titles of journal articles. None of that gets included in the in-text reference. Your in-text reference is only the author's surnames and the year of publication. And you paraphrase the idea, meaning put it into your own words. Here are some different ways in which you can in-text reference. So whenever and wherever you use somebody else's work, insert an in-text reference. Firstly, the author can form part of the sentence. So you could say, according to Fielding and Deploy-Cilliers, the year of publication 2014, communication is dynamic because whatever the case might be. Fielding and Deploy-Cilliers 2014 provide a definition of communication saying that it is whatever the case might be. As Fielding and Deploy-Cilliers point out, communication is dynamic because Fielding and Deploy-Cilliers assert that communication is dynamic. Fielding and Deploy-Cilliers 2014 contend that whatever the case might be. So as you can see, to make your writing sound academic and credible, you can use these ideas for in-text referencing. You don't always say according to, according to, according to. You use all these options so that your writing sounds academic. The other way, like I said, is where the author does not form a part of the sentence. And here you will put the idea, whatever might be, communication is dynamic, and then in brackets, Fielding and Deploy-Cilliers, comma, and the year of publication, close brackets, and then you put the full stop. The full stop goes after the in-text reference when the author's name does not form part of the sentence. If there is no author for a website, you use the name of the web page. So for example, Business Today, comma, and the year that the web page was created or last updated, 2015. Or you could say, according to Business Today, 2015. Okay, so you use the name of the web page and the year that the web page was created or last updated. Here is an example of a piece of text with in-text references. So if you are doing answering a question in an assignment or in your POE or in an ICE task, this is what your answer should look like. You can see at the end, for each idea, I've included an in-text reference. So I didn't simply put a paragraph and then at the end of the paragraph put all 5 or 6 or whatever the case might be in-text references. The in-text references are by the idea. So take the first idea. Action research is different from other research styles because this type of research involves researchers researching their own practice. Now, where did I get that idea from? I need to let my reader know exactly where I got it from. So there we go, in-text reference, Christensen, Bertram, and Land, 2010. So I've let them know these are the author's surnames and this is the year of publication. I've taken it from that source. And so it goes on. You put the source by the idea. Now, sometimes in a submission, you might need to use a quotation. Quoting is when you use direct words from the original text. No more than 10% of your submission should be quotations. And quotations should only be used if paraphrasing is going to distort the meaning of the original text. So you can use it for definitions or terms that have been coined and cannot be paraphrased, powerful controversial statements, law, theory, or policy. So for example, if you are asked to provide the mission or mission statement or vision of a particular company, you cannot go and paraphrase that. You have to quote that directly, okay? So when you are quoting, you include the page number in the in-text reference. I'm going to show you how to do that now. So quoting is when you use direct words from the original text. On the other hand, paraphrasing, as I explained in the previous slide, is when you state the work, words, or ideas of someone else in your own words to demonstrate your understanding of what that person has said or of their idea. Quotations fall into two categories. The first one, if your quotation is less than 40 words, this is how you will format it in your submission. Fielding and Deploy Cilliers, remember those were the author's surnames, in brackets, 2014, the year of publication, colon, which is the 2 dots, and the 10 is the page number, close brackets. So that is your in-text reference when you are using a direct quote. It's exactly the same as when you paraphrase, except that it has a colon and the page number. State that, open inverted commas to indicate that you are using direct words. When we say communication is dynamic, comma, it means that communication is in a state of flux or change. Full stop, close inverted commas. Those are the direct exact words that I took from this textbook, including the same punctuation as it appeared in the textbook. So if a quotation that you are using is less than 40 words, it's the author's surnames, the year of publication, colon, page number, open and close inverted commas. If you are using a quotation that is more than 40 words, which really shouldn't be the case at this stage of your student lives, that will come much later, possibly when you're doing honors or masters or your PhD. For now, if you need to use a quotation, which you seldomly would, they will be less than 40 words. But if for any reason, let's say you need to quote a company's mission or vision and it is a bit long. Now here's what you will need to do to indicate that it is a long quotation. You start the quotation on a new line, you indent both margins, the quotation must be double spaced, and then after you type out the whole more than 40 words quotation, you go to the next line, go back to the original margin, and put the author, date, and page number in brackets on the next line at the end of the quotation. So you start the quote on your new line, indent both margins, double space the quotation, and then go to the next line, back to the original margin, put the author, date, and page number in brackets. Okay, I have a side note here. Do not reference Wikipedia, Google, or yourself. About Wikipedia, you may use Wikipedia, meaning if it's a topic you need to read up more about or understand further, you can by all means go and read Wikipedia as a reference point, and then go to the sources listed and rather include those in your submission. So you cannot say according to Wikipedia 2021. Okay, you must rather reference the source that Wikipedia has drawn the information from. Also, Google 2021, Google is a search engine. It's not a source. And then yourself, unless you have been published in an accredited journal or any other accredited publication, you may not reference yourself. Okay. On this slide, I have an example of a quote that's more than 40 words. So if you look carefully, it says, this writing and presenting skill is explained in the HLIP caps as follows, colon. I start a new line. Now what I want you to notice here is, look at the rest of the text. It's 1.5 line spacing. But when I come to my quotation, the line spacing is bigger because I've increased it to double line spacing. I want you to also notice the margins on both sides. So by the quotation, I have indented both margins. So then I type the whole more than 40 word quotation, and then I go to the next line, back to my original margin, and I include the in-text reference. In this case, the creator is the Department of Basic Education, DBA. The year of publication is 2011. Don't worry about the A for now. You can see I have a colon here and the page number is 11. Close brackets, and then I carry on with the rest of whatever I was saying. So this is what a quotation of more than 40 words will look like in your submission if you ever need to use it. Now, I told you not to worry about the little a for now. The reason why I have that little a is because I used more than one source that the Department of Basic Education created in 2011. So maybe you might want to use two sources. Both have exactly the same author, and both sources were created in the same year. So maybe the author wrote a textbook and a journal article in the same year, and you want to refer to both in your submission. So you will label one A and one B. And then in your bibliography, you will provide the full information of each source following the A-B convention. Compiling a reference list. When you have referenced a source in the text of your submission, provide the full bibliographic details in a list at the end of the submission. You can call it a reference list or bibliography. Your bibliography must be in alphabetical order according to the author's surnames. You must have accurate punctuation, and different sources have different formats. You can find these in your IE Harvard Referencing Guide. So for example, if you look at the first one, Pretorius E.J., Reading and Applied Linguistics, South African Applied Language Studies, 25. This is a journal article. And I know this because the title of the journal is included in italics, and the issue and volume number 20 and 5 and the page numbers 91 to 103 are provided. The second one I know is a book, and I know it's a book because the place of publication and publisher have been provided. The third one, TLHE, I know is a website because obviously I can see the hyperlink. But look at the format, that's important. And then the final one is your module guide, okay? And you know this because it says their module outline. So that is how you will format these sources in a bibliography. You must keep the following information ready to compile your reference list for each of the following sources. So if you use a website, don't use the website, complete your whole submission, and then go back to try and find the information for your reference list. As you use sources, keep compiling your reference list or bibliography. So for a website, you need to know the author's surname and initial or creator of the website, the year of publication or last updated, the title of the text, the URL, and the date that you accessed that website. For a journal article, you need to know the author, the author's initial, the year of creation, the name of the journal, the volume, the issue, and page numbers. For a book, you need the author or authors and their initials, the year of publication, the title of the book, the place of publication, and the publisher. So as soon as you use a source, make sure you note down all this information so that you're not scrambling around to compile your reference list at the end. Okay, so that's all I have to say about the referencing and your POE Part 1. Do you have any questions? Pleasure, Sianda. It is, of course, recorded, and I will upload the recording to my YouTube channel tomorrow morning, so you can access it from there again later on if there's something that you need to check on. Or it will even be available in Colab, so you can just go and take it from there directly at the end of the session if you need to. Okay, so thank you so much for attending, guys, and I hope you found it useful. And then I will see you next week, same time, for the CARS National Support Session for Assignment 1. Okay, all the best and have a good night. Bye-bye. Thank you.